Yes. Okay. Hello, Mads. We have this small presentation about this Martin Luther King and the Black U.S. And his speech. I will start with the first major point that we have. It's that the Afro-Americans should have freedom, like the whites that he mentioned in his speech. And I have an example from his speech that I will read up now. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. And I think this major point is very good, especially because it's like the main topic that Martin Luther King wants to say out loud to the whole country, and also for the Afro-Americans, because he is also Afro-American himself. So yes.
Yes, and the second major point is that he wants the new generation to be equal. And in that we have two examples. The first is, I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. This is a major point because he talks about what he would like to see in the future, and how he would like to see the human race and as one, where they judge people by the inside and not by the outside, and where the new generation will be a nation where one's color doesn't describe who you are, rather than where everyone can be what they want to be. Yes, and the other example is, this will be the day where all God's children will be able to sing the new meaning of my country, ties of the sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing, land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrims, pride from every mountainside, that freedom ring. And this is also a major point, because their country is not only for the white man, but for all the colors of all the humans in the world.
Next one.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we have the third major point, that is, if American is to be a great nation, this much must become true. And for that quote, I have an example. And then this happens, then we allow freedom to ring, then we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city. We will be able to speed up that day, then all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual: free at last, thank God almightily, we are free at last. And I think this is a very good major point, because it's his dream, but also his purpose for his speech, and that is that all colored people can be free together, and maybe in the end would lower the racism, or paying more attention to it wouldn't be a problem anymore. Especially for the Afro-Americans, that probably will feel very relieved if Martin Luther King could change this problem. Yes?
Yes. So for the rhetorical pentagram, I will start with the speaker. The speaker is Martin Luther King, and Martin Luther King was a priest, a civil rights activist, and the leader of NAACP, which stands for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. The NAACP is one of America's oldest and most institutional civil rights movements. The NAACP was founded in 1909, and it is an organization for political, educational, and economic equality. The NAACP is also against racism and discrimination. So is the speaker known? No, he wasn't really known before his popular speech. It was this speech that made him known all over the world. although before his speech he was locally known for standing up for racist acts and for himself.
Yes. In his speech of Martin Luther King, he is the person who leads the way.
Slide. Tak.
Just continue.
In the speech of Martin Luther King, he is the person who leads the way and must show strength and leadership that the United States should become a better country for all races. His role is also to be a speaker for all blacks who experience racism themselves. Everyone was aware of the past that the United States had with the slaves. His speech is very subjective, but many Americans share the same opinion as him. His credibility in his speech because he himself is African American. Also, the African Americans are all behind him.
Yes. So, where is the speech being held? This speech was held in 1963 in Washington, D.C., in connection with the Great Civil Rights March, also called March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. This speech was held in front of nearly 250,000 listeners. So, as I said, the speech took place on August 28th, 1963. The purpose of the speech was to address the problems with discrimination and segregation. As a civil rights activist, Martin Luther King wanted to spread awareness of the ongoing issues with discrimination and segregation in America. He stood up and performed his speech because he wanted to make a change. He was so emotional and passionate about his points that he actually ended up improvising the second half of his speech.
Yeah. Martin Luther King uses simple language to deliver a clear and exact message to his audience. He needed it to be understood by everyone being present. And mostly he uses pathos, where he's appealing to the audience's feelings. He starts a lot of his sentences with I have a dream, and he is talking to the audience with an emotional experience. He also talks about fears from the past and dreams for the future, and the audience agrees with him. As well as pathos, he uses ethos. He uses it to persuade the listener. They have to trust him to do something about the critical problem. And he does not use logos, but by using logos in the speech, he could have supported his impact and the conviction he has about an equal future.
Et slide tilbage.
Martin Luther King uses a lot of repetitions with I have a dream at the beginning of the sentences. He also uses metaphors in his speech. For instance, happiness is a sunny day, loneliness is a locked door, coziness is a cat on your lap. And the speech corresponds to the audience. There were a lot of people being present in a crowded place when Martin Luther King was giving his famous speech. It gave some kind of feeling that the way he expressed his speech, and the topic is well connected with what he believes in, that all people should be equal regardless the color of your skin or what religious beliefs you have.
Yes, the subject of the speech is racial discrimination and equality between races. Racism is a major issue that everyone knows about. The subject is emotional for the audience because it is something they have tried themselves and something they all want to eliminate from the society.
We think that the intended audience is someone who has tried and experienced some form of racism early in their lives. His primary audience is all Afro-Americans, but it's also directed towards the Caucasians. The age group, we would say, is between 18 years old and all the way up to 60 years old of age. There isn't any specific occupation that the speech is directed towards, we think.
Next.
The speech is one of the most famous speeches of all time. The speech was delivered to over 250,000 civil rights supporters who showed up to the demonstration in Washington, and there are still people listening to it today. The speech was very important for the movement because it gave people hope that the country would be one united country, and there would be equal rights for everyone. In general, Martin Luther King has been very important for the civil rights movement because he has been the front figure and and a role model for every Black person in the world, and also for everyone who is not brave enough to speak up for themselves. He also showed that it is possible to solve problems in a non-violent way, which has clearly been forgotten when you look at the protests today, such as the Black Lives Matter protests in the United States, where people demonstrate in a very brutal and violent way. But hopefully in the future we will protest just like Martin Luther King did in his prime, which was in the non-violent way. Yep.
Yes.
Thank you for listening.
Yes.
Yep.